Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is...
Bill D'Angelo, Aikido Center of Los Angeles, 4th Dan Aikido.
So, Bill, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we have a listener question, and the question is, what can I do as a beginner to convince my friends that Aikido is an effective martial art?
Why do we need to convince other people?
That we've done this. This is sort of a reversion or a retread of an earlier question, but I think that
about effectiveness.
We've had this question about effectiveness, but if we take the question at face value, maybe backing it up is the beginner probably feels like they have to justify starting Aikido.
Justification.
Yeah, they have to justify why they chose Aikido over Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo or Tai Chi or whatever it is. How do we help that beginner feel strong in their decision to choose Aikido when they're getting, pressure from their friends who are like, why didn't you take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or why didn't you take wrestling, or whatever it is the other alternatives are in their neighborhood? This
is a question that everything and everyone struggles with. Why did you choose a Mac over IBM?
Right.
Why do you like soccer over football? Why do you like baseball? Why do you call football and we call it soccer?
Right.
You must justify why it is you do the thing that you do. It's that confirmation bias. I'm right. I bought this thing and I am right in purchasing it because I am smart and I am good enough. So let me explain it to you why you should choose this thing too. Like someone once said, I go, oh, you bought a Jetta? And the person said, of course, German engineering is the best. And I was like, it's a Jetta, But that's that thing. It's like you're wanting to justify to others that your decision is a right decision.
But for Aikido, I think, for those of us who've done Aikido for a very, very long time and may have had experiences where we feel now that we understand how Aikido works, but this is maybe... correct me from your position if you think what I'm about to say is wrong, but for some people, Aikido, the way that Aikido works can be difficult to understand in the beginning. And so this question, I think, is very apt for the beginner in Aikido to say how this counters a punch, or how this counters a kick, or just what some of the basic movements in Aikido are because they're based on swordsmanship, because they're based on certain other techniques, they don't look like karate, or they don't look like some other basic martial arts moves, even though in the end they serve the same purpose. And so I think that beginners are uniquely challenged in trying to explain some of the basic exercises, in a sense.
Well, exactly. It's like that thing where you, like prior to Bruce Lee, how many people bounced on their feet going, prior to boxing? Even if you look at boxing, prior to the 1900, they didn't bounce on their feet. So when these things become the standard way people do things, then people think they have a knowledge. Like everybody tries to choke people now on the ground, and get the hooks in, do all this stuff, reverse choke, and all these different things. And so that then what you're explaining is understandable to other people, right? Supposedly when the settlers first came to the United States, the America's continent, the Indians looked out and could not see the ships. And the reason why when they first looked out they could not see the ships is because their eyes didn't understand what that thing was.
Interesting.
And so until it got close enough, they went, oh, that's something. Off in the distance, it all just blended in. So if you don't really understand Aikido and you don't really understand the techniques, you can't really explain it to people. But if, let's say you do wrestling, if you do like a striking art, karate, boxing, wrestling, even judo, you can do something to someone right away to show them, oh, Aikido works. Right. Judo works. But Aikido is not like that, and that's because Aikido has a different philosophical base. Right? Aikido creates the techniques in a different way. Aikido creates the techniques with the movement of your body. Judo mechanically breaks the person's balance. Karate mechanically knocks the person out. Aikido, you're trying to catch timing and spacing. You're trying to understand how the body works in order to use that against these other people. And so when you've just started Aikido, you're like, oh no, it's like this thing, grab my wrist.
Well, isn't also that, I mean, that in certain dojos, I think to some extent in our dojo, other than the true beginner who's here for their first 4 or 5 classes, the style in our dojo, and not all Aikido dojos, but in our dojo, there's not a lot of verbal explanation.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of thrown into the mix. The pedagogy is to copy, and to sort of, and that in of itself is a take it on faith style of teaching. And so you're not getting a lot of instruction where someone says, if you move your foot here, your hand here, turn your head this way, that you'll get a certain result. You're just shown the technique, and then the result happens. So the sort of Western style of explanation, you don't get a lot of that. And so then the student's left with continuing to practice, and hopefully they'll get the results. So I think what this student was asking us, they're almost asking for a certain type of explanation, which in their first 6 months they're not going to get.
Yeah, and so that's the hard part, because if they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, how many words do you have to say in order to get the same thing to come across?
Right.
Right, and so like, if I explain all these things to you, your conscious mind is trying to calculate them, but then you have to block the punch subconsciously in order for it to be proficient. And so what are you really trying to learn? Are you trying to learn the effectiveness of a martial art? Are you trying to learn faith? Are you trying to learn trust? Like, something I regularly say to the students is, just trust me. Right. I am the expert. Please just trust me. Not to be like, a narcissist or anything like that, but I'm trying to tell them, look, I've been all those places that you've already been, so just trust me. Because this one student was like, I need to know that Aikido's effective. And I go, can't you just trust me? Well, no, but I need to know. And I go, well, then go get in a street fight.
Right.
But then Aikido's trying to get you to not go into a street fight.
Right.
Right. So you win all the battles that you never get into. But then the thing is that there is almost no way to convince another person to change their mind. That's called salesmanship. Right? You go to the dealership, you wanted the blue car, the salesman talked you into buying a black car.
Do you think now that we're going back to our 7-day-a-week schedule, and we now have back on the schedule the fundamentals class, or what you and I might call the beginners class, that the fundamental style will have more explanation and be geared more towards that, or it will still be the look and follow pedagogy?
Well, see, that's the hard part. The modern person, the Gendai person, wants you to explain every little thing to them.
Yeah. Right?
But that's not how you get good at a martial art. That's not how you get good at anything. You get good by doing it and doing it and doing it, and then the economy, when you economize your motion, your movement, when you're doing calligraphy, you start out like this, or you start out doing like this, and then later on, it's just this. Like that. But you have to learn to do that. Someone points it out to you, but you have to learn to do that thing. And so the taste of the day is for the teacher to explain everything. But in reality, in order to learn how to drive a car well, you must drive a car a lot. I don't know about you, but when I first started driving a car, I couldn't have the radio on. It's too confusing. But now you got to have the radio on. Now you got to be talking. This arm's for the ladies, as you drive and all this stuff. But when you first started, you were like death grip, driving real slow, no radio on, stop talking.
So in your experience, I mean, I'm trying to think of my own experience, but in your experience, this feeling that the beginners have the need to explain to their friends, and maybe that's really a need to explain to themselves, that they're projecting out onto needing to explain to their friends. How long does that questioning period last? If you can get past it.
It's almost forever.
Almost forever.
Because you have to either have done it on someone to realize its effectiveness, or hurt someone to realize its effectiveness, or you learn to let it go, right? But like, you can't. Why do you like red cars? Why do you like convertibles? I just like them. So I don't like convertibles. You might like them, but I don't like them. Why do you like sailing? I didn't like sailing when we did it the other day.
So do you think people eventually gravitate to the martial art that corresponds to some set of personal preferences?
Definitely, because you want the thing which validates you and gives you the thing you wanted. If you went to the beach and got sand kicked in your face, you want to go beat that guy up, how many weeks are you going to wait?
Right.
Right? How many classes are you going to go to where you go, now's my day, now's my time? Aikido's not like that. You get to that place 10 years later. All right. The person's gone. Not even at the beach anymore.
Right.
Beach is closed, sewage spill. But that's that thing, right? We're looking for that thing which helps us quell that fear.
So going off of that, what were the personal preferences that because I know that you boxed, you did kendo. I can tell an embarrassing story for myself on what my personal preference was, and it's going to sound silly, but what were your personal preferences that attracted you to Aikido?
Well, the thing is, like, I'm kind of short, and my legs are short. So karate, taekwondo, and my legs are really big. So I didn't think that a kicking art would be my thing.
Would not be beneficial, yeah.
And then I didn't really want to fight. Even though I got into a lot of street fights, I didn't really want to fight. So I wanted to find something which helped me not fight.
Yeah.
So reading books about Aikido, and you went, yeah, that's kind of what I really want. I don't really want to fight. And so, that was my personal preference. And then once I read a book on Aikido, I was like, that's what I want. Right, I don't want to fight other people. I don't want to fight to other people. But then you get to this place, I mean, gosh, how long did it take it took, and this is a bad thing to say, it took close to 30 years to let go of the desire to
beat people.
Not just beat people, but to prove to others, that Aikido is effective. Like the other day, a student said, how would you, when the student was asking this question, another student asked, would you ever go on the Joe Rogan podcast and
debate Joe Rogan?
Yeah, debate Joe Rogan and convince Joe Rogan. I said, oh, I would love to.
Right.
I would love to. I mean, his stand-up is funny, and
he's expressed opinions on Aikido before.
And his podcast is very good. But I said, Joe Rogan doesn't want me on there. Oh, but the thing is, it's not that Joe Rogan doesn't want me or not want me. It's that Joe Rogan wants to say things which are sensational, because sensational things make you money.
Right.
So his true feeling about Aikido might not even be this way, but saying a certain thing enables you to make a certain amount of money, right? No one, if it's bland and kind of, medium rare, no one really wants it. But if it's sensational and controversial, everybody wants to listen and, oh, what's he going to say?
Yeah.
How's he going to say it? Oh yeah, he is crazy. Oh yeah, Aikido is fake. But the thing is that, and then this person asked, what would you do if he wanted to spar with you or fight you? And I go, well, why would he want to do that? And she said, well, so you could show him that it's effective. And I would just say, it's effective. You have to believe me. And he goes, well, what if he wants to beat you up? And I would just say, why do you want to beat me up? Okay, so you could tell everyone you beat me up? Just tell everybody you beat me up. Just go ahead and tell me, because I don't care. I don't care. Oh, well, you're fake. You're ineffective. It's not real. I don't care. I don't have time to convince people that this is real, this is effective, this is good, this is right, this is just, this is there's too many things in the world. You like peanut butter? I don't like peanut butter. Let's just leave it at that. You want to go hang out and just talk about life? I bet you if you talk to Joe Rogan, it is really interesting just to talk about life. But the sensationalism or the validity of one thing over another, there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right? As Asimov's book on, I think it's like the relativity of right or the relativity of wrong. Is the earth flat or round? Well, this was a paper that he wrote in response to someone saying that he was wrong about something. That it's all shades of gray. Yes, the earth is round when you perceive it in a certain way, but it's flat, like 1.08 miles, and then it slightly curves. 1.08 miles, slightly curves. So from a certain perspective, the earth is flat.
Right.
Right. But that's that thing. It's like, what are we really debating?
Well, I mean, certainly Aikido is a mixed martial arts whipping boy. I mean, we get, in the mixed martial arts community, people use Aikido as a standard, and I think that Joe Rogan maybe he hops on that bandwagon a little bit, but I don't know. I think that's an entirely separate, like almost an entirely separate podcast. But I think where you're going with this sense of like effectiveness, young students wanting to feel validated, what brings us into the martial art. I think you make a really good point, which is that convincing ourselves is ultimately the biggest challenge.
Right, because we're human beings. Is God real? Yes. No, maybe, I don't know. God is real when you get something that you want, and God is fake when you don't get what you want.
I mean, the interesting thing is the martial arts community is full of these types of comparisons. So when Conor McGregor fought, I'm going to have a mental blank here, who did he fight, the boxer?
Floyd Mayweather?
Floyd Mayweather. So this is an example of how these interesting comparisons happen in martial arts. You have there a set of rules, and Mayweather basically beat him. But they had to fight under a certain set of boxing rules. And under those certain set of boxing rules, Conor McGregor couldn't possibly beat Floyd Mayweather.
Well, he couldn't, yeah, and he's not a very good boxer. So if you watch the fight or you watch the highlights of it, Floyd Mayweather is just like, leading in, leading out, and then Conor McGregor swinging for the fences, right? And then because they're using certain ounce gloves, 10-ounce gloves, 8-ounce gloves, an MMA fighter is not like that. But it's kind of funny, like there's a famous MMA coach who said MMA is not a style of fighting. It's not a martial art. It's a mixture of all these different things. You can't call it martial art.
Right.
It's when you say I do he was making a joke because some person said what was asking what style do you do, and then the guy said, "Oh, I do MMA. That's my style." And that's not a style. It's a sport. It's a sport that mixes throws, grappling, pins, chokes, locks, all these different things. But is that the end all be all, right?
Although the Greeks did have for ancient Greece, it was a martial art.
Right. But it was a martial art. But could you gouge people's eyes out? So if you can't gouge people's eyes out, you can't kick them in the nuts. It's a sport.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it was a sport for the Greeks. It was an Olympic sport.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like you go, oh, is it effective? Is it this? Is it going to be like that? And if someone came today and said, "Hey, I'm going to fight you so that I can tell everybody I beat you up," I would say, just tell them that you beat me up.
Yeah. No, but my point, Sensei, was interesting is that this idea of effectiveness can be applied to any martial art depending on how you set the rules.
Yeah, because
that was my point. Was that you can say, "Oh, mixed martial arts will beat anybody," or boxing will beat anybody, but basically it's like this circle. You can put any style in a sense on a circle, rotate it around in terms of how you set it up against another one, and they fall or rise depending on, so like Floyd Mayweather with his speed and his defensive technique, if you're only using hands, you put the gloves on. If you take the gloves off, even then Conor might beat him in the sense because Floyd Mayweather is never used to having light hands and striking bare knuckled.
Right.
Probably couldn't do it.
But see, that's the thing is that interesting videos to watch are BJJ disqualifications, and wrestling disqualifications, and they're all the same, almost the same. Just for BJJ, it's strikes, and then the person body slamming you.
Right.
In wrestling, it's person striking you, because if you're going to lean in, the person's going to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're going to put your lights out. Like they're going to give you the kiss.
Yeah.
Lights out, right?
No, it's an interesting point that looking at the disqualifications. So, I mean, I think that this sort of argument, this artificial argument we have about which martial art is at the top, which martial art will defeat the other martial art, these are gamesmanship discussions in some sense. They're only interesting in some way to technicians.
I don't think they're interesting from a technical standpoint, because what do people talk about on Monday? What the game was like on Sunday, right? Because they don't have anything else to talk about in life.
Yeah, I mean, although I do think it was interesting to watch the Conor McGregor fight. It was an interesting exercise to see him try to box.
Yeah.
I mean, it was entertainment.
Right. So, like, let's say Joe Rogan wants some entertainment. He could come take an Aikido class, and then he would be like, all thumbs, all left feet, and then he would go, "Wow, that's incredible."
Yeah.
But that's that hard part. Like, we're not really talking about is it a valid martial art. We're only talking about it as being effective martial art. And then all martial arts, if you talk to Bruce Lee or all those, they all say it comes down to the practitioner.
Yeah.
Right? Because how effective you are, there's a correlation between how mean you are.
Right.
The meaner you are, the higher, more effective your martial art is.
Have you seen The Northman yet?
I have seen The Northman.
So, when you're talking about it comes down to the martial artist, one of the things that really struck me about The Northman was this. Do you remember the scene where the Berserkers are dancing around the fire in the rain?
Yeah.
And they're like getting ready for battle, and they're going absolutely bananas, the Berserkers. So, I don't know a lot about Norse mythology, but my understanding is that the Berserkers were this type of warrior that they took drugs or certain types of alcohol mixed with hallucinogens that made them crazy. And that craziness on the battlefield was so intimidating that they basically won most of their battles.
Yeah.
And that scene in The Northman where they're dancing around this fire, drinking and taking these hallucinogens, and they're dressed in animal skins, and they become crazed warriors. That it isn't so much their martial technique, but it was their physical and mental intimidation that made them incredible fighters.
But then what happened when they entered the village? Who did they kill?
Women and children.
Everyone. It was total scorched earth.
Terror.
They killed the men, the women, the children. They raped women. They enslaved women. They did all these things which
terrorizing.
Is terrorizing, crude, and not sophisticated.
Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure.
So like what is the biggest thing in the mafia? We don't go after people's families, right? Why wouldn't you? It's super effective once you go after their families. I watched this. I was watching Tokyo Vice, which is, I don't know, everyone says it's really good. I didn't like it, but I watched Tokyo Vice, and what do the Yakuza guys say? We're going to kill your whole family first, then we're going to kill you.
Right.
So that scorched earth mentality, making it as brutal as possible, it becomes indiscriminate. Right. It's just a hand grenade. The hand grenade goes off and it kills everybody within a certain radius.
But that's, from my sense, that's a way for the soldier, the warrior, the fighter to use mental intimidation, so that it isn't so much about the physical technique. I mean, a berserker may or may not have better battle skills, training, but by doing these kinds of coming in, torching an entire city, the next city's like, come on in. Like, they don't even want to fight, right? The next city down the road is just like, oh no, whatever you want, we'll pay you, we'll give you 1/3 of our women. They don't even want to fight. Because of the mental intimidation, not because I think the guy has a better battle axe technique, but because the mental intimidation is so high from that kind of terrorizing.
But that's where martial arts is supposed to be more sophisticated, right?
At a high level.
Well, in general, it's supposed to be, why don't you just break people's arms in practice? Because they're not coming back to practice.
Right.
Most gyms and dojos are first and foremost businesses, which have to have insurance, which need people to come train. You break everyone's arm, snap their neck.
Students.
You got no students. But it takes nothing to break someone's arm, to break someone's neck, to break someone's toe. And really, it takes almost nothing to break someone's spirit. You're fat and ugly, and then they never come back. And you go, I won, I'm effective. But that's not the point. The point of the martial arts is to
build their spirit.
Not just build your spirit. Teach you how to become a true human being, right? And so you can choke people, but the thing is that once you actually choke someone out, once you actually break someone's arm, it is disgusting. The first time you choke someone out, you You're just, oh my God, did I kill that person? Oh gosh, they didn't die, because they're sitting there going like that, and and then you're afraid that you might actually have killed them.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, a whole bunch, which said, I used to really love jiu-jitsu, but then the first time I choked someone unconscious, it was so scary, I just said, forget this, I can't do this. But when you actually break someone's arm, it doesn't just go like Steven Seagal make like that. It goes, ah! The person screams out like blood-curdling scream, and then you're just like, and then in that moment, your humanity comes rushing back, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to jail now. Oh my gosh, I just did that. And then you're like, it's so sickening. And so that's the thing, like when Aikido kind of understands that. And if you look at the trend in a lot of MMA type martial arts, they're starting to talk about becoming a better human being. Oh, it sounds kind of like Aikido. There's several different quotes by famous BJJ teachers that are just talking about the technique.
Character.
Yeah, about your character, right? Because the person who wants to snap the neck, the person who wants to choke that person unconscious, those aren't sophisticated people. It takes no training to choke someone to death, right? But that's that thing. You're trying to learn this thing to save not just your life, but save another person's life. So when you're trying to talk about effectiveness, this is effective, this is not effective, these techniques are real, these techniques are not real. What are we really talking about? We're talking about, I inside feel inadequate. I feel less than, I feel not good enough, I feel whatever, and these things shore me up so that I can walk in that place and not feel this way. Anything?
So, Sensei, like, yeah, I think that's all true. So, but how do we get that, like, kind of circling back to the beginner who's here a month or even less, couple weeks? How to, like, everything you're talking about is really core to Aikido. It's core to the way you teach, the way that the junior instructors teach here. But how does that get communicated to maybe make it 2 months? The beginners who's been here 2 months, who's diligently coming to class, copying, doing what they're supposed to be doing, but isn't hearing anyone say that.
Well, but that's that thing, right? Like this place where it becomes, you either are good enough to defend yourself or you don't care. It's like this. It comes up to a point, right? And at that point, you don't really care anymore. Like, I don't care. If someone says like, oh, Aikido, someone drove by and just said like, Aikido sucks.
No, but I mean,
right?
But I mean is the spirit behind the lesson. I mean, are these things that a young student, not young in terms of age, but a nascent student, a new student, should pick up by talking to senior students or to the instructor after class, or just don't even worry about it?
It's not something that they can pick up. It's because, again, it's verbal judo. It's being able to say, oh no, this thing is right, this thing's wrong, this is right or wrong, but you have to get it out of your system that you need to convince others. You have to say, I like this. Why did you order Coke over Pepsi? Why did you order Coke over 7-Up? I just like it.
The reason I ask is, it seems to me, like, having lived in Northern California for a couple of years for work, and I guest trained at another dojo, really great dojo. But you run into in Northern California a lot of Aikido that is very ideological. And you see people that join Aikido are often join with a very preconceived idea that Aikido has a very strong philosophic component.
But I can't explain that, because at this dojo, at Aikido Center in Los Angeles, under Kensho Furuya, we learned Aikido as first and foremost as a martial art.
Right.
Right. And so I didn't have to really
worry about that.
It's not that I didn't really have to worry about that. Furuya Sensei was such a prolific teacher that you could kind of believe in him. You go, yeah, man. And you go, look at this dude, man. He's super overweight, but dude, look how he moves. Oh my God, his understanding of Aikido. Oh my gosh, his understanding of philosophy. Right. Oh my gosh, like, there's no way that you could just go, Aikido's not effective, not real.
Right.
So
the faith was always super strong here.
Yeah. So like one time, I think I told the story maybe in another podcast that I was at Inside Kung Fu magazine.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there waiting for Furu Sensei. I had driven him there, and so I'm waiting in the break room, and these two guys come in and they go, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just waiting for my teacher." "Oh, what style martial art do you do?" And I said, "Aikido," and they went, "Aikido," and they just started like like kind of
reeling on
and then and then here I am like getting all mad, and then they go, "Who's your teacher?" And I said, "Oh, Furu Sensei," and they went, "Oh, Furu Sensei," and they just immediately they went, I mean, I don't know what Aikido is, but Furu Sensei, he's a real deal. And they just bowed and walked away.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that same thing has happened so many times to me where people have said, "Oh, who's your teacher?" "Oh, Furu Sensei." They would say, "Yeah, he's a real deal."
Yeah.
Full-fledged martial artists would tell me, "Oh, Furu Sensei, yeah, he's a real deal."
Yeah. It happened to me at least one memorable time when I was, this story, a very limited story. I was, for work, I was in Singapore for an extended period of time training. And my very first night there, I went to their dojo, and they have a shihan there, and they train outdoors. It's like 300 people all at once. And I was getting ready to practice, and they read my hakama. And they saw it was Furuya Dojo, and he's like, "Furuya Dojo." And like completely different reception from just being a visitor to being from Furuya Dojo. He's like, "Oh my God, Furuya Dojo. You're from Furuya Dojo?" And I'm nobody, but having that on my hakama completely changed the reception that I got, visiting all the way in the other part of the world, in Singapore.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like when right before, like 10 minutes or so before Furu Sensei died, we were talking about, I had to take a Tai Chi class for my master's degree. And then Furu Sensei said, "Oh, you had to take this Tai Chi class." And then I told him the story about whenever I would go to the Tai Chi class, if I got there early, students would ask me to show them the moves from the previous week. And then I would show them. And then one day we're taking the class, and then one girl said to me, "Oh, how long have you been doing Tai Chi?" And I said, "Oh, I don't do Tai Chi." And then she said, "Yeah, but you look like you know what you're doing." And I go, "Oh, I study martial arts." And the teacher goes, "I knew you did it. I knew you studied martial art. Who did you? What style do you study? Who do you study with?" And I go, "Oh, in front of this whole class of people, I said, 'Oh, I do Aikido.'"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, really? Who's your teacher?" And I said, "Reverend Kensho Furuya." And he went, "Oh man, Furuya Sensei." And he just went on for like the rest of the class. He didn't even teach Tai Chi, and just went on about how he knew Furuya Sensei when Furuya Sensei worked at Inside Kung Fu magazine, and all these things, and oh yeah, he's a real deal, and man, he's such a great martial artist, and all these things. And you're just like, so unfortunately for my students, they don't have that in me, where they can just, that I'm such a prolific martial artist that they can just believe in me. So I never had to worry that Aikido wasn't real or effective.
Right.
I never, and it's such the weirdest thing, like I didn't realize that Furuya Sensei was so out of shape or had such bad health until he died. And then when he died, you went, whoa, even though I'm in the medical field, I just went, oh my God, that is true. Why did we let him eat that stuff? And that, but that's the thing, is that you have to have something to have faith in. That's why if you don't go to church and you don't have a priest, pastor, rabbi, whatever it is that you follow, it's very hard to believe in something.
Right.
Because that person is doing all the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah, it's a tough thing.
So to give someone a way to explain to people that Aikido is effective without fighting them is really hard. Because again, if I fight you, see, here's the catch-22. You don't believe Aikido is real. I fight you to show Aikido is real. But in fighting you,
hurt them.
No, in fighting them, I show you that Aikido is not real. Because the philosophy of Aikido is such that violence on any level is not Aikido. Right? Because I needed to show you that's violence in my heart that makes me come out to show you, look, Aikido is effective. Today, I mean, maybe when I was younger, people would question the validity or strength of Aikido, but I don't remember when the last time it was in the last 2 decades, or no, maybe decade and a half, that I had to defend Aikido's honor. I had to defend Aikido's effectiveness.
Right.
The thing I get the most today is, like, for instance, my calligraphy teacher said, "Oh, before I met you, I thought Aikido was fake." He's all, "Now that I met you, man, I realized, oh, Aikido is the real deal." And I was like,
Right.
"Oh, cool." But I get that a lot. I get that where people tell me they never ask me if Aikido is real. They ask me to explain Aikido. They ask me what I like about Aikido, but they never question Aikido.
Right.
Like one person, I was getting a chiropractic adjustment, and the chiropractor asked me, you know, how come you never see Aikido in MMA? Well, the reason why you don't see Aikido in MMA, for one, there's a certain level of rules, but two, it doesn't make for a good fight. I pin the person and hold them down until they either tap out or the clock expires. But then again, if I have to show you, that's violence. And that is against the philosophy of Aikido, because the philosophy of Aikido is such that the only victory is the victory over yourself.
Right.
And so
Right.
if I have to convince you, then I'm competing with you, and then I'm trying to best you and show you. And what do you think? I'm gonna, even if I beat them up, would they show up the next day for class?
No.
No. So, like, for instance, we used to have a dojo in Santa Monica, which is,
Yeah, I remember. I
you know,
trained there.
20 miles away from here, and I'd have to come to LA and then drive, and then Furu Sensei would dispatch me to Santa Monica. And I had to drive. I hated it because I was like hoping that I got there. The thing is, he didn't tell me previously that I would be teaching there that day. You have to show up, open the dojo, clean up, get everything ready, and then he would
drive.
and then he would say, "Come upstairs." Then you go, "I need you to go to teach Santa Monica," and you go, "Okay," and then you have to get in your car and drive to Santa Monica in
traffic.
rush hour traffic. But then you can't be all smart and clever about it and show up late, so then he doesn't ask you,
Right.
because then you're going to get reamed. So you have to show up knowing
Early.
that with all this extra time to clean up and get there on time to get to the Santa Monica dojo on time. And so at that dojo, they had a policy, because it was inside a Taekwondo studio, Taekwondo Hapkido studio. And they had all these different martial arts. They had Tai Chi, meditation, Taekwondo, Aikido, Kendo, Hapkido. And one of the policies is that any person could take one class to try it out. So every time I taught, there would be someone in there trying out the class. And 90% of the time it was another martial artist. And 100% of the time, I had to throttle them. I had to mix it up with them, and then I'd have to drive back to LA, give Sensei the roster, and then I'd have to explain what I did.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to tell him about these things where I had to, like, mix it up with someone. So one time this guy comes in, and I don't even know what style of martial arts he did, but every technique he jammed the students or tried to reverse it. And then every technique, I would lose my temper, and then I would just pound him for that technique. And then I'd change the technique, show something else. The students would start out doing it, and then I look over, and he'd be doing his thing, to the point where every time I would just end up
Beating him up.
thrashing this person. And I got down to kokidosa at the end, and when we started doing kokidosa, he tried to do like this touch hands thing, where he's like this, and I just went like this, bam, right in the face, bam, right in the face, and then I just held him down with the pin, and he was just like, oh my, and then afterwards he's like, oh my gosh, Aikido's effective, man, Aikido's great. Do you think he came back?
No.
No, he never came back. So, but that's that thing, even though I bested him, and he was a martial artist, it didn't convince him to come back and do
Yeah.
Aikido.
Yeah.
It was just a waste of time. And then I had to go back to the dojo, tell Furu Sensei all about it, and then get a scolding for another hour
Yeah.
about why I'm not supposed to do that. And then I just have to sit there, hi, and then it got to the point where I just stopped doing it. I would just ignore them. They would say, you want to spar after class? And I would be like, no. And then I would tell Furu Sensei, and then he would call up Jun Chung, the guy who owned the
I remember
Taekwondo school, and then flip out on him that students are challenging us. And then Jun Chung was a student of Aikido. Hi Sensei, hi. And then he would go back and go get mad at those guys. But that's that thing, right? Like I stopped tussling with these guys because I would have to tell them myself.
Yeah.
And then because I had to tell myself, I go, look, I just need to get home. I don't have time to get lectured by Furu Sensei, I'm just not going to tussle with this person. But 100% of the times I tussle with people, they never came back. I never lost. I never got beat up. I didn't really beat them up, but I didn't lose. But they never came back to do Aikido,
Yeah.
even though they got bested. But then they're trying to do Aikido, right? So of course we're doing the technique that I'm only going to teach a technique that I'm fairly competent at.
Right.
But they never came back to Aikido.
Yeah. I remember that school. I went there a few times. Didn't Ken used to teach there?
He taught the weekends, but I taught the weeknights.
Weeknights, yeah. I must have only came on the weekends because I don't remember you there, but I do remember Ken. I must have gone there maybe 3 or 4 times on a Saturday.
And Ken never had that problem.
Yeah.
He probably didn't have that problem because he doesn't have that type of hate in his heart like I do. He doesn't have that the desire for violence like I do.
Whatever happened to that school? I mean, it was an interesting concept, right? It was kind of like this. It was like a Budokan in a sense, like have everything that you want all at once.
Now it's a bicycle dealership.
Oh, is that what it is?
But I mean, the rent in the
It was too expensive.
Yeah, it was too expensive. But so I mean, we taught there for only maybe a year or two. I mean, I hated it because I had to drive all the way from Pasadena to LA to Santa Monica, and I couldn't just go home. I had to drive back to the dojo and then drive home.
Yeah.
Drive back to the dojo, get lectured, take sensei to dinner, then drive home.
But that sort of brings up another question. Is I'm on another martial art, and maybe you have an opinion, maybe you don't. But Taekwondo also gets slammed as a martial art, differently for different reasons than Aikido. But I'm curious, why do you think Taekwondo gets slammed as a martial art?
Because it's a martial arts that's a sport, right? So because it's a sport, you pick it apart, you go, oh, no one would ever do that. But the thing is that all martial arts, every martial art has some person, some ardent that you look at and you go, that guy's the real deal.
Right.
For Taekwondo in America, it's Heel Cho. Heel Cho is crazy good. Like he's the guy in this picture, kicking this, doing a spinning back kick on a. But here's a story about this is how crazy martial arts were prior to this day. So Heel Cho, I did not see this happen, but I heard it from Furu Sensei and I heard it from another person who was not a student at this dojo. That there's this huge martial arts demonstration, and in the beginning of the demonstration, Heel Cho was supposed to break like this 10-foot block of ice. So, and then most people don't know this, but prior to breaking ice, they tap it and create fissures in the middle, and so it's easier to break. So they cracked it too early, and then it
split.
No, it melted back together. Oh, so they open up this curtain, and Heel Cho comes out, and then he goes, Rah! Bam! And the thing doesn't break. And then Heel Cho just goes, bam, 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 and just keeps hitting it.
Until it breaks?
No, until his hand is just a bloody mess, blood everywhere. God. And Heel Cho will not stop hitting this block in front of hundreds of people.
Damn.
The students had to pull him away from the block of ice, and he was still trying to murder that piece of ice. But see, that's
martial arts.
You think, Taekwondo's kind of, you see someone like Heel Cho, and you go, I don't want any of that action. Right? Yeah, so someone like that, you think, Taekwondo's kind of, no, it's not. That dude is crazier than crazier. He was the coach on the movie Best of the Best of the Korean team.
I remember that movie. Sure.
Yeah, that's Heel Cho.
Well, some of occasionally when I'm having vicious insomnia, I'll type in like on YouTube like the most vicious knockouts in MMA, and they'll often be kicks.
Yeah.
Where like the guy will be like this, and he'll have his left hand, the guard will drop, and so this side, or sometimes it's this side, sometimes both sides, but usually one hand will drop, and that person will do a spinning kick, and out of nowhere they'll just be like, tapped.
Mirko Krokroff, I think, is this leg hospital, this leg morgue. But that's that thing, right? Like you go, Tai Chi's kind of fake and ineffective, and then Furu Sensei's friend Master Shu came and taught a Tai Chi seminar at the dojo, and Furu Sensei made us all take it, and then he did the he showed the Tai Chi movement, and then while we're doing the movement, he came up and then just like did the technique that you would be doing in that movement on you. Dude, that dude punched me in the chest. It hurt so bad. And then he looked like it was just like this. That, and I was like, oh man, that hurt. But that's that thing, like once you come up against the practitioner,
right.
a serious practitioner of any martial art. Dude, back in the day, Pentak Salat was kind of, everyone was like, that's so lame.
Right.
And then the guy now who's in the movies The Raid and Wu Warriors, what's his name? This guy. That dude's hardcore Salat person. And then you go, oh, yeah, Salat's pretty effective, right? So see, it comes down to the practitioner.
Yeah.
And then the practitioner is what people look at and go, oh yeah, that is effective.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Right now, Aikido doesn't have that person.
Yeah.
In the 80s, it was Steven Seagal, right? But today, we don't have that person because Aikido is not ventured into the MMA world and is not really in movies.
Right, it's not marketing itself in the public. I think that's one of the really interesting things about all martial arts. And we were reading Gozo Shioda's Aikido book. I think he talks about this, that the martial spirit in all martial arts. I think that all martial arts have a similarity in the sense that they develop technique, they develop the mental spirit, and they develop the heart spirit of the fighter, and those components of both the physical characteristics and then the mental / emotional characteristics. You're developing both these on they're similar tracks. They both go on a parallel. At some points, one's farther ahead than the other, but you have both those components going.
Yeah. So like in Aikido, the mental, emotional, and the physical, they rise like this.
Right.
In like other martial arts, especially striking, the physical rises like this, and then when it gets towards its apex, the mental, emotional, physical start to move in.
Right.
Right. And so Aikido, they say Aikido begins where most martial arts end. But that's that thing, trying to understand that and understand this idea of effectiveness, how you convince other people that Aikido's effectiveness, you can't.
Right.
Because the desire to convince another person that Aikido's effectiveness is a form of violence.
Right.
It is a form of competition. No. What you believe is not right. I am right. I'm the winner. You're the loser. That's why Aikido doesn't really. There's no competition on Aikido, because if there was a competition, if there was a number one, then people will try to cheat to get to number one.
Right.
And then so there's this whole idea that opens up the door for competitiveness. Should Aikido be competitive, right? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they polled all these Olympic athletes in America, and they said, if you could cheat and no one would find out,
do it.
And you would win a gold medal, would you do it? And like unequivocally, they all said that they would.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the hard part. It's all cheating up to a certain point. Right. In BJJ, they're not allowed to slam people. In BJJ, they're not allowed to eye gouge. But if you could kind of eye gouge, when I was a little kid, we did wrestling, and then they taught us how to crossface.
Yeah. Crossface
someone, and then while you crossface, you dig it into their nose, eyes, or mouth, depending on your crossfacing. Oh, and then when you're crossfacing, you choke them a little bit. You asphyxiate them with your forearm.
Yeah.
It's not against the rules because you're cross-facing and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But see, like that's the thing. Like in order to win the medal, you're going to have to cheat.
There's all kinds of dirty tricks. I mean, I wrestled a little bit and did some other martial arts before Aikido, and you're right. There's like all kinds of hidden punches in judo and things, or using your elbow on the chest that are clearly illegal, but no one really catches them. And you're saying that it's the spirit of cheating. But one of the things that you and I spoke about before the podcast, which I thought was interesting, was, and you mentioned Steven Seagal, is that we're human beings. When it comes to convincing people, we're caught up in marketing. And so Steven Seagal was the great marketer of Aikido, And that's fine. He was what he was, and he's kind of gone off in this tangent that is not really relevant to the Aikido that we do now. But I was going to ask you a question: is in the way that Aikido had this marketing vehicle in Steven Seagal's films in the, was it the 80s?
Yeah.
Was that when it was, in the 80s? Is social media now the place where Aikido could get, is it Christian Tissier doing these great seminars, and is that what's going to pull people into Aikido?
It's going to.
I don't know. I'm asking a question.
Famous Aikido teachers, and they are not wrong. Famous Aikido teachers are what is hurting Aikido. Because
so I'm exactly wrong. I mean, it's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying.
Well, no, it's they're helping but hurting. So hear me out. A famous Aikido teacher is hurting Aikido because the general public can't understand the difference between demonstration Aikido and teaching and learning Aikido. What most people see on the internet is demonstration Aikido. So a person who is demonstrating Aikido in a high level is demonstrating their myo. Myo is your level of enlightenment, to where you break shu-ha-ri, and then you break the form. You're showing your high level of enlightenment. A while back, a student came to the dojo, and we were doing Ushio Ro Kata Tori Tenkan, Ikkyo, and he turned the wrong way. And I said, "Oh, you're turning the wrong way." And he said, "Oh, no, Fruit Sensei turns this way. Watch this." And he showed me this demonstration. And I said, "Oh, no, you're seeing demonstration Aikido. Teaching Aikido, we teach them to turn this way because you're trying to learn a certain thing.
Right.
However, once you go out and you're demonstrating Aikido and you're showing your level of ability, you can turn any way you want.
Right.
Right. But from a teaching standpoint, you must turn toward the back foot. So that's that thing, is that when you see Christian Tissier, when you see Shirakawa-ryuji, what you are seeing is demonstration Aikido, which is different than teaching Aikido.
Right.
So no one in the real world break falls. You throw someone down, they don't break fall. Right. And they just roll. Like there's this video of this huge security guard throwing this skateboarder. He throws the skateboarder does like almost a perfect break fall, and the skateboarder just gets up. And then they just start yelling at each other. If a person, what people don't understand is that in order for someone to break fall, they need to have a solid basis, stable base in order to break fall from.
Right.
That means you didn't break their balance if they have that. Doing a break fall is to make the other person look good and to save your head from getting a head injury.
Right.
But that's not real. In the old days, they drove your head into the ground.
Right.
Right? You locked it, broke it, tried to kill them.
Right.
But today we lock it, pin them, throw them, let them out of it. But in the old days, you locked it, you broke it, you threw them, you killed them.
Right.
But today we don't do that. We don't drive someone's head for shihonage into the ground. But in the old days they did, right? In the old days they use a lot of atemi. But then the thing is that if you use atemi, then there's still some remnants of violence left over inside of you. So that's why a lot of Aikido dojos have
evolved out of it.
Evolved out of atemi, even Homo dojo. But if you look at other martial arts, they can't get away from it, right? Because it works, it's effective. So that's the thing. Like, if we come back to this idea of what is effective and not effective, how can we explain it to others? You just can't. You, the practitioner, the practitioner must believe in it.
So talking about consuming, this is, I think, a really interesting point. So the beginner says, I watched Christian Tissier do Iriminage, Ura style, which is sort of the gold standard for us. And they're doing it like this, and he's floating, and he's like, I can't do that. And you're like, no, that's demonstration version.
Yeah.
The form version number 1, where you hear and you break the balance, turn your hips, throw. And they're like, I don't ever see anyone do it that way. How do we educate people that what they're seeing is something that will take a long time to get to, and that, or you don't?
Well, you can't. So, I write this weekly blog, and I always use the word. I always start my blog with a martial artist is or a warrior is, and for the longest time I stopped using warrior because people were like, that's not the definition of a warrior. Warrior this, warrior that, but they're not understanding the idea of what my definition of warrior is. A warrior is a person who fights to develop themselves. Right. And so, but that's this idea that you can't have a disclaimer every time a person demonstrates Aikido and you go, this is demonstration Aikido.
Right.
This is this person's level of enlightenment. This is not what you're going to learn in the dojo.
Right.
Because then it's nobody looks at stuff like that. Right? They want to see something fantastic, something great, something crazy. When I look at these people, I look at how they break fall. And then I go, oh, you're going to be like me in 10, 20 years. Double separated shoulders, arthritis in your shoulders. That's probably going to be you, man. Because the way they're falling, they are able to break fall out of it. But if your hand falls too close to your body, and then you flatten your hand, and then you have to hit way early, like out here, so that the body doesn't flatten against the shoulder. If the shoulder flattens, the only thing that's going to flex is your AC joint.
Yeah.
And then once that becomes separated, like in my case, double separations, arthritis will come in, all those things, and then it's going to be this thing that you're constantly trying to work it out, right? But that's that thing. Like, it looked good.
Yeah.
You demonstrated this crazy thing. You can break fall out of anything. I used to break fall sideways out of Tenkan. I can't do that anymore. You know, I used to be able to do that banana peel floating break fall. Can't do it now. Don't want to do it now. Right? Because I've had too many injuries. But that's the thing. Like, how do you explain to someone that watching F1 racing is not how you drive a car? Right? How do you explain to someone that watching Iron Chef Bobby Flay cooking is not cooking?
But you want people to watch, you want people to see the Formula One version of Aikido because things in life are aspirational.
But that's the thing. The ardent watcher of Formula One racing understands Ryan Hamilton's, like when he made that lane change, you know, he passed that person, oh my God, he did it in a certain way. The layman who watches just goes, oh, he passed him.
Right.
Move that fast. We as practitioners can watch Christian Chisier and go, wow, look at what he's doing. But anyone else watches Christian Chisier and goes, why are they wearing a skirt? Why is that guy wearing a dress?
Right.
They can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. We probably to wrap this up.
We have gone off the ranch on this one, seriously.
So to try to recap, you can't really convince anyone that Aikido is real effective. It's really just you. You must believe. And if you believe, it doesn't matter what anyone else's believe. They want to fight you, go, hey man, go fight somebody else. They want to fight them, tell them to come down to the dojo, I'll fight them. I'm just kidding. Although I would like to, but I'm not going to because I'm trying to let go of that competitiveness in my own self. So you can't really convince anyone. You only must convince yourself.
And it's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast or video.
Thank you for listening.